Okay, guys, like I said, I have a very special interview guest with me, the founder and CEO of TCC, which is the Cohort Collective, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll jump right into the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. It is awesome to be here. My name is Fariha. So that's like Maria with an F, if that helps at all.
Oh,
But yeah, I'm the founder of the Cohort Collective. It is a career coaching firm that is tailored for Gen Y and Z, really trying to create an infrastructure to decentralize career development and create accessible resources for young professionals, really equipping them not with just the right skill set, but also the right mindset to evolve with respect to personal and professional development. Now, on top of that, I'm also a content creator on LinkedIn. So that's been pretty fun growing my audience on there. And my background is actually STEM as well. So I currently work in the field of sustainable technology. So yeah, it's been pretty interesting this year with COVID and everything, like growing a business, pivoting into sustainable tech, being a content creator. It's been
you
fun.
have to be extremely busy because you have basically three jobs.
Yeah, it's been busy. I mean, it's been good in a way because like if I'm not busy and I'm home and I'm like quarantined, I go crazy. So it's been good to have things to like keep me busy.
Yeah, I love that. So some of the things I wanted to talk to today with Fariha is about STEM, what her thoughts are about STEM, and how she feels about people matriculating into the workforce after graduating from college. So the first question I want to ask you is how you feel about diversity in STEM.
Yeah, that's a great question to start with. That's like a heavy one. Now, STEM honestly is so broad. So there are parts of STEM that have a very well-defined system when it comes to things like DEI. And there are parts of STEM that really do neglect things like open-mindedness and inclusion. So the thing that I think STEM is doing right when it comes to diversity is incorporating more fields for women and people of color. So specifically, my field of STEM is engineering. And just from going through a 5-year degree in engineering, working in engineering, and working not just in sustainable tech now, but I used to work in commercial and military aerospace, I know that it has evolved over time. So when I was a first-year student, there were not as many resources to advocate for people like myself. I mean, like, we both fall into like the minority of minorities, I would say, where women in STEM were person of color. So growing up year one engineering versus now, there has been a lot of progress in terms of creating tangible programs, tangible policy, legislation to support and advocate for that kind of community. But there's also a long way to go. You can always improve with respect to DEI initiatives.
I'm kind of stuck in the middle with this. I don't know. I sometimes feel like companies have these DEI organizations and it still feels a little bit like lip service because at the entry level or the associate level, they're diversifying that pool of candidates, right? We're throwing more marginalized communities in the mix. But then as you go up the ladder, and there was this amazing infographic on LinkedIn that showed it, the higher you go up the ladder, the less diverse it is. And I think like you said, there's policy and legislation in place. For example, in the state of California, at least one board member has to be a woman. However, there are still boards that make all the decisions for people all the way at the bottom. At the end of the day, not to say the people at the bottom don't matter, but the people at the top are the ones making the decisions impacting everybody else. So it's kind of frustrating to see boards across different organizations, across different states, not representing the diversity at that level compared to the associate level.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. That is so evident, especially across STEM. I think I read somewhere that there are more like CEOs in the field of like entrepreneurship and STEM named Mark than there are women. So yeah. I'm just saying, like, yeah, we are making progress, but still a long way to go. I think the reason why the diversity kind of decreases as we go higher and higher in terms of seniority is because there isn't really anything in place right now when it comes to retaining that kind of talent.
So accountable.
Exactly. There's a lot in order to really like attract people in terms of the communities and groups that fall within DEI, but retaining them and creating a system to like support them over their career development, that's a different thing. And to add, another thing that I've noticed when it comes to anything DEI related, a lot of it is more marketing than it is a system. A lot of it is literally like, hey, let's put like a Black woman on social media and like, yeah, we're totally into Black History Month. But what are you actually doing? Like, what are the steps you're taking, the policies you're making, the programs you're creating to help Black women, to help people in marginalized groups? So when you go over time, you know, and you increase these levels in seniority in a particular company, that kind of leadership starts to break, because if there is no system, if it's all marketing, if it's all, you know, just to make a show, then it's not going to be a long-term solution. It's not going to retain itself over time.
Yeah, I agree with you exactly. I think, as I was saying before, a lot of it is just lip service. That's why it's hard for me to believe when companies are like, we care about diversity and inclusion, but at the top, I don't see anything diverse about your organization. That brings me to my next point of being a person of color, you know, belonging to a marginalized community, is what made you interested in STEM? You know, you didn't see people who look like you, and a lot of people are like, I see someone who looks like me and feel I can do it, but we didn't have that privilege. So what made you interested?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I actually was very lucky because my dad is actually an electrical engineer. So he's actually ex-Air Force, and now he's a professor of engineering. So he understood that kind of discrepancy. He understood that I was not in a community or a society that really had my back when it comes to creating any type of interest in a STEM field. So he kind of took that initiative on himself. He exposed me to the field of STEM from a really young age. Like, he would take me to work, he would show me what he was doing, he would take me to class. And so I got that exposure from a really young age. And I think I am a result of what can happen if you expose young professionals of color who are female to the world of STEM. Like, if you actually expose them to what the possibilities are, to all the interesting and cool things we do in STEM, they might actually create a passion in the field and pursue it in their future. So for me, I think I was kind of that very, very niche percentage of people that was exposed to the field of STEM from a young age, and it really stemmed from family. So I would say really what I am is kind of a legacy. Like, I grew up with it, now I'm doing it, and it feels like everything is coming full circle. So that's pretty cool.
Okay. And then pivoting just a bit, or I guess I'll answer the question as well. I don't feel like my school really supported me in pursuing STEM. I don't know, I went to a predominantly white high school, and, you know, they didn't really motivate me to do much. My counselor thought that, you know, I could only go to a 2-year college, that I should just stick to community college. And then because of my GPA, but my high school was so high performing that even if you were doing okay on a national level and in that ecosystem, you were doing poorly. So I wasn't really pushed to pursue STEM. And I think that is the problem for why so many people of color don't end up pursuing STEM or know about STEM, is because we're not shepherded in that direction.
Exactly.
But other people are shepherded in that direction. But for me, my grandfather actually was a pharmacist, and my mom would talk about that all the time. And she kind of just always talked about pursuing medicine, even though I didn't end up becoming a physician. She was like, no matter what, if you pursue a job in STEM, you will always have a job. If you pursue that career, no matter where you go in the world, you'll be able to find something. And that's actually kind of true. You're always going to need people in science. You're always going to need people in technology, engineering, math. I mean, that's kind of one of the pivotal things that makes the world go round. So I would say I just ended up in it with my own grit and tenacity, not because I was encouraged by my community, unfortunately. But I wanted to change directions a bit and kind of ask you about your college experience, because for me, I don't feel like, again, my university prepared me all that much for a career in STEM. You kind of go to college when you're pursuing science, you know, engineering, technology, and math, and you think that there's only 3 careers you can pursue in each one of those categories. Like, if you pursue math, you can only be a mathematician or something. They don't tell you about being a biostatistician or pursuing biostats or epidemiology or anything like that. You pursue science, they tell you become a doctor, a teacher. Those are really the only options you have, but there's so much more in each career field. So do you feel that your school prepared you, or do you feel schools should do a better job of preparing students?
Yeah, hell no. My school did not do a good job on that. I had such a narrow-minded view of what engineering was when I was a student because my school just did not have the right people. They did not have the resources or the funding or maybe even the will to teach students what is really out there. And that's a huge problem when it comes to the field of STEM. You're shown this very narrow-minded view of what things can be. Like growing up when I was a student, I just thought engineering was okay, well, I'm going to do some math and I'm going to do some talking to people, I'm going to write some reports, and then that's it. But now that I've done my own research and I've done the work myself, I know how diverse the field is, like not just STEM, but specifically engineering. There's so many different paths you can take. And it could be all the way from medicine, it could be environment, it could be biology. There's just so many different routes you can take. And I think it is incumbent on any educational institutions to share that information. The earlier we can educate our young professionals, the better they can actually make decisions on their own with respect to what they actually want to do. If you're not going to tell them what exists out there, then how are they going to figure it out?
And they just throw you to the wolves, and that is exactly what my book is about preparing you for life after college, taking you through junior year, senior year into the real world. And I think my personal belief is freshman year, you're on campus. The first thing you should do, meet with your advisor. Your advisor should give you a sheet, a printout. So simple for the advisors to do this. Give you a printout and say, you're on track to pursue a degree in, I don't know, American history. These are the jobs that you can do. I advise you look for internships in all these fields as you go along the curriculum and see what you like and what you don't like. It's almost like a career bingo or career scavenger hunt. You cross it off, and by the time you get to senior year, you're like, okay, I've tried a few things. I kind of like this category of career opportunities and growth.
Exactly.
This. Why they don't do that, I will never understand.
Yeah, I honestly don't get it either, because I think what's really important in proper career development is trial and error. Like, you just need to try shit out. You need it. You need to try things out, see what you like, see what you don't like, and then evolve the next year. But the way school systems are set up, it's like, okay, this is a narrow-minded view of what your field is. Here's like 2 options on what you can do. Pick from one of the 2. And then so many students, like hundreds of them, get stuck in this one path, and they don't even know there's like branches that exist. So yeah, I think schools are really failing students on that part.
It's so unfortunate. And then you talk to people who work in like career centers and stuff, and they're like, well, the schools can only do so much. I'm like, you have like billion-dollar endowments, million-dollar endowments. You have so much money from tuition. Obviously, I don't know what's allocated to it and what's not, but you have this career center where you're trying to match up career and curriculum, and you're trying to figure out how to disseminate that to students. While I do understand it's the students' responsibility to also do their research, you got to guide these people, because you're talking to 17, 18-year-olds who don't know anything from anything, have just left home for the first time. They're even confused on what a roommate is, some people, because they may not have siblings, and they're navigating this whole other world of life. And you're expecting them to figure out how to navigate a career as well and prepare themselves through these 4 years for the rest of their life. And you're not giving them any proper guidance. I have a really love-hate relationship with career centers, because I know they're doing what they can, but it's not enough.
Yeah. And honestly, just to give you some perspective, I still don't know what I'm doing. It's been years now since I've graduated, and I'm still learning. Yeah. So to expect students to just know these things when they're in school and they're still learning is just like ridiculous. Yeah. So yeah, I honestly can't give career centers any credit here. And I know that I'm not generalizing every school here. Like, I know there's some schools that have very, very good infrastructure and systems to set students up for success. Yeah. But in my experience, and I think for yours as well, like, we just didn't have that kind of exposure, and we had to like do it ourselves and put ourselves out there.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. And I think if the majority of students are feeling this way, you have to ask yourself, how are marginalized students feeling? It's even 10 times worse, and it only makes it that much harder for all of us to excel in life, really. Thank you so much for watching part 1 of my interview with Fariha Tasnim. Make sure you come back next week to watch part 2. Bye, guys.